I'm Hamish Tyler. I'm the Visual and Performing Arts Administrator here at the Monterey County Office of Education, and I'm also the Station Manager here at KMST, and it's our delight to have in our second series of local legends, a legend in his own time, King City's own Mr. Music Man, Mr. Bruce Graham. And Bruce, we're delighted to have you here, and considering also that Bruce is the Monterey County Cultural Council's Educator of the Year. For all of us in the arts, congratulations, and we look forward to this Saturday night, I believe, over at the Embassy Suites in Seaside, when Bruce will receive his much-deserved recognition and honor. Bruce, tell us a little bit about how you got involved as a music educator.
Well, when I was a kid, my parents, I guess, recognized I had some sort of talent, and my grandmother bought me a little chord organ that had color-coded notes, and so I don't know how old I was, but so I figured out how to read music. And so then when band came around, I think I was in the 4th grade, and my dad, I brought my paper home, I was so excited. My dad said, "What do you want to play?" And I said, "I want to play clarinet." And he said, "No, you don't want to play clarinet, you want to play trumpet." And my dad had no musical experience, but he wanted me to play trumpet. So he'd play all these trumpet records, Louis Armstrong and Harry James and all this stuff. He's like, "Listen to this." So I want to play clarinet. So we go to the music store, and the guy says, he shows me a clarinet, and my dad says, "We can't afford that." And so the guy doesn't have a used one, and so we start to walk out, and I said, "Well, have you got any used instruments?" And the guy says, "We have a trumpet." And I don't know I know it wasn't a setup with my dad, because my dad said, "We can't afford this either." So he called my grandma, and she said, "Okay, I'll help you on this trumpet." So I became a trumpet player and got into band. And it was I had this great teacher, Mr. Bourne, who I guess does what I did a couple of years ago, to drive around the city and teach everybody how to play a trumpet, or their instruments. And he was my trumpet teacher. And music just kind of was a thing. I was always involved in music. And then quite a bit prior to that, in the 3rd grade, I remember they needed somebody to be Santa Claus in the play. And this girl that I thought was really cute had the suit, and she was going to be Santa. So the day of the play, she gets sick. So the teacher says, "Who wants to be Santa?" And so I raise my hand, "I'll be Santa." So I walk out on stage and everybody cheers. And so I think that was the beginning of, I'm going to be a performer. Yeah, and then music turned out to be the thing that I liked.
So it was sort of love at first sound.
Yeah, it was.
Good. And you grew up in Southern California.
Yeah, I grew up in Anaheim. My grandfather actually owned the field that's right next to Disneyland. He owned 40 acres. So when I go down there, I stay at the Marriott, which is there, and I say I'm staying at Grandpa's house.
And you furthered your education? You went on from the high school experiences?
Yeah. I had lousy grades. I was a good musician, and I was a pretty poor student. And so... miracle of miracles, I got a music scholarship to go to Brigham Young University, and so I got there and found out, it wasn't near as good as I thought it was, and I considered changing my major to art, and they wouldn't let me get a double major. So, the story, kind of the story I tell my children is that I'd work for hours, and I'd get a C on an art project, and I'd work for like 10 minutes on a music assignment, and I'd get a C. So it seemed to me that the most efficient use of my time was to pursue music, and that, I'm kind of making light of it, but it actually was really very challenging to major in music. And my parents, I come from a long line of teachers and educators. Neither of my parents were, but I was talked to about the importance of teaching from the time I was little. So when I got to school, my intention was to be a teacher, and the idea was trying to find something that fit, and music seemed to be the best fit for me. So.
1, 2, 3, and.
Again, we're talking this morning with Bruce Grant, legend in his time down in King City with Mr. Music Man. And continuing along here, Bruce, did you participate in the marching bands and that tradition?
Yeah, I had a great teacher in high school, Don Wilcox, and marching was a big deal, and I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and so we did all of that stuff. We participated in all the big. I mean, we started in, I believe, September, and it was every weekend until Thanksgiving. We marched, and we did the football games and the parades. The parade on Saturday. It was a great experience,
Right.
and that was wonderful.
Yeah, one of the raging controversies in the visual and performing arts now, for us it's a major controversy, is the physical education credit for marching bands. And I know going to a lot of the conferences in Sacramento, this is a debate. Obviously, we see youngsters out there marching at halftime and all the preparation that goes into that. Clearly, we can see that there's a lot of physical activity. But there is a feeling that that is not really rigorous, standards-based physical education. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't quite figure into the debate because I made a decision in King City so that we could include everybody, that we wouldn't march. And when I went to the high school, the marching had fallen apart, so I actually didn't have to even be the one to say, no, we're not doing this. It had already been decided. So I don't really fall into that debate, but I know that when I marched in high school, and I also marched in college, I'd say probably the week after marching band was over, I'd put on 10 pounds. I mean, so, it's pretty challenging. I mean, it's at least as challenging as, some of the things that they do in PE for PE credit.
Right. How about you watch football games, for example, and you see these huge marching bands, and all of those youngsters, they seem very competent with their instruments. Are they given like scholarships to be in?
Well, yeah. I don't know if all of them. They used that was part of my scholarship. If I wasn't in the marching band, there was no scholarship. So there were a lot of music majors in there that were, it snows through football season, and we practiced outside, so you had a lot of music majors on scholarship complaining that they had to be in the marching band. But we got 50-yard line seats to the games, and we got floor seats to the basketball games, so it was, that was great. But yeah, it's rigorous, and especially now. I mean, the stuff that those kids are doing now, the sideways, backwards, this stuff. I watched a kid play this very demanding trumpet solo while he's, moving around. Maynard Ferguson would plant both feet and stick that horn up and play those notes, and this kid is playing that, and he's walking around, So,
It's amazing,
yeah, so
It's amazing.
they're doing plenty of action.
Right. My guru, my music man over at Stevenson for years was Dr. Robert Clevin.
Oh yeah, great guy.
And Rob used to tell me if you could play the bassoon or one of those instruments and you could play it well, you could write your own ticket to some of these colleges. I don't think people really understand that, Bruce, on another level, that if you're an accomplished musician, you can find financial aid to continue your studies.
Oh yeah. Well, one of the deals is if you're studying the arts, the question you get asked is, so what are you going to do with that? Well, if you're taking a math class, nobody says, taking calculus, nobody says, calculus, what are you going to do with that? How's that? But you have to kind of justify what you're doing in the arts, and yet, if you're a trombone player, if you're a bassoon player, if you're anything, and you're good, you can get a scholarship. I mean, the same way with sports. They don't reward the music scholarships. There aren't as many as like football and stuff like that.
Right.
But there's that, and there's plenty of employment. Just there's plenty of opportunities. It's not like, I mean, I have a son that's majoring in music, and I'm scared. Because he doesn't want to teach. But, he's good at it. I have a son that's just graduated in film, and that's tough.
Right,
but
right.
So is,
Sure.
I've had other members of my family take difficult assignments, and they do just fine as far as making money.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's 4-1.
4-1.
Right?
So it's 1, 1, 2, 3,
Ba,
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 2,
da,
3,
da,
4,
da,
1, 2, 3,
da, 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 ba, ba, da, da, da.
Everybody did it together. That was cool.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it did get turned around, right? Yeah.
Classic
One thing
Kings-
we do nicely is
Kings
we
style.
mess up together. Yes. 1, 2, 3.
You mentioned a couple of magic words in there. Calculus. It has long been thought that there is a connection between music and mathematics. And as more and more brain research, Jensen, for example, in San Diego, a few of the other scholars and researchers in this area are beginning to define that it's not just something we suspected. It's not just apples and oranges, it's now apples and apples. As clearly in the brain, certain pathways are opened up, developed, enhanced, enriched by music, and we can see this correlate into mathematics. We're also seeing the same phenomena in the theater with verbal scores, and the kids that are very active actors and so forth in the theater, and we can see correspondingly verbal score increases. So it's becoming more apparent.
Yeah.
And you probably have seen this throughout your storied career.
Well, yeah, I've always, I'm real reticent to look at some of those studies. I mean, I've looked at them, but to, base what I do, I mean, they're great. So part of me says, yes, this stuff really helps in the development of math. Or the other side of me says, these are really smart kids, and they're also drawn to the arts.
Right.
So either way, that justifies that. But yeah, a lot of that correlation. A lot of the kids that are good in math are also good in music, and it's like it just comes easy to them. I had this thought this time about theater, though. I just did a play with the stagehands, and I've thought about that because you memorize your lines, and so it gives you better skills. But starting I didn't go to very many rehearsals. I just sang in the choir and did stuff. But I had to be at a dress rehearsal and 5 performances or something. So, and there's a lot of downtime because you're just waiting. So this was about the Second World War. It was set in the time of the Second World War. And so as I was sitting there, I thought, during this downtime, I was sitting there, I've really developed an appreciation for a lot of the Second World War families in this situation surrounding Pearl Harbor from this play. And as I sat there each night, I started to contemplate that deeper than if I had maybe in another situation, because I was kind of trapped for a certain amount of time, and I contemplated that, and I thought, I wonder if that's not some of that with kids in drama, that as they listen to the script, they start to see other things that even the audience doesn't see, this deeper symbolism, and that carries them into other reading and stuff.
Yeah, that's very perceptive, and I have found that throughout the years, that's the kind of thing you see it developed as they study the history and the given circumstances of the play, and youngsters become much more involved in that. Bruce, looking back now, various different decades in our experiences are certain decades have more monies and supplies available to us, and certainly you have anecdotal, some fun times that you can share with us.
Yeah. Well, the first one was that there were no jobs when I graduated. There were 2 jobs in California that and so I took the first one, and I stayed there. So that seemed to be, one of those things. And when I first started teaching, they were so happy that kids were taking band and that we were doing well that whenever I asked for something, I got it. I didn't really know that the whole deal about, begging for things. And then I can't remember if the superintendent change was Proposition 13. Oh. Then I had to start really fundraising, and we sold bottles of degreaser for barbecues and stuff. and one of the big cases came. They were supposed to deliver on a certain day, but instead they delivered on a day that I wasn't there. So they just brought the boxes in, and they weren't real careful with them. So the ones on the bottom are in these plastic containers. Somehow the ones on the bottom broke.
Oh.
And so we had this degreaser all over the auditorium floor, this nice, beautiful hardwood floor. Oh, and I had to hear about it for... And then another one, we did a circus. Oh. We had a circus come, and I put on the circus at one school, and they told me I could never do that again. So I begged, finally I got the middle school to agree to let me have the circus. And the PE coach was upset because it was going to be on the PE field. And I said, no, it's really clean, you know. And he said, why did they kick you out of all the other places? And I said, those were unrelated to the circus. And so I said, nothing's going to happen. So the day that the circus came, we had like a week of rain. So they back up this truck into the grass, and of course it sinks down to the axles on his soccer field. And then they bring in a tow truck to pull him out, and that sinks into the asphalt on the basketball courts. Oh, he was so mad well, everybody was mad at me, so we stopped doing the circus. So yeah.
Hopefully the circus made a little money. Oh gosh, the things we would do, Bruce, now you also teach on the middle school level.
Yes.
And then to the upper school as well, the high school. I don't know if you're familiar with the Stanford Research Institute's called an Unfinished Canvas that's come out recently, and it kind of talks about the state of the arts in California.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the unfortunate things, and I've seen this happen in our county as well, that the enrollment actually is declining in music, where for years and years and years, music was always at the top. It's up there, close to the top, but it is declining. And some people feel it's that connection between the middle school program and the high school program that's falling apart. Your observations?
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's a loss there. I mean, the high school in King City, we had a really strong middle school. I was at the middle school. We had a really strong program, and the kids just wouldn't take it in high school. So when things happened the way they happened, I ended up being at both places. And it was easy. The kids knew me, and so they would just come. Right. You know, there were a couple, a few didn't because they had other interests. But yeah, that's really tough, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. Except one of the things that I've really tried to do is that they used to say you can't be in band if you're going to be in sports. So I tried to tailor a band program that would allow kids to be able to do all those things. My thought was, you don't want, well, maybe you do, but I don't. I don't want just the kid who is interested in music and they're maybe pursuing a career or something. I want the kid who's the star athlete or the kid that's going to grow up to be the mechanic or so that or whatever, the doctor, whatever their job is, that they have a richer appreciation for music, and that it kind of stays with them. And so that's the way I kind of designed what I do at the high school. This will be the first year to see if I'm able to get those kids to come from the middle school to the high school. Middle school kids, all they need is to have one friend say, well, I'm not going to take band, and then that translates to them, well, nobody's taking band. So kind of have to deal with that a little bit. And a lot of kids, especially in middle school, they don't see that they would like to be in band. I mean, so I kind of twist their arms till they're there, and then most of them will try and stay.
Give us an idea of the middle school curriculum, the kind of what it is that a youngster would go through in, say, middle school band. What is that like?
Well, okay, yeah. Well, the way we did it down there, or the way we do it in King City, the way I did it, is that kids would start playing their instrument. When I was just at the middle school, they would start playing their instrument in the 6th grade. Before that, they started in the 5th grade. I used to do elementary school. So they started in the 6th grade. And we'd teach them how to, before they get there, we'd give them like an introduction to music and kind of teach them how to read music so it wasn't totally foreign to them. Then we just teach them the basics, how to count, how to read, and how to get sound on their instrument. And it's challenging. My classes are always like 60 kids or something like that. So 60 kids with different instruments, trying to get them to play together and learn how to play is a bit tricky. And I think it takes a certain. I don't think I could have done that when I first started teaching. So there's some trade-off. You don't get or at least I haven't been able to, get real picky on a lot of things. Like, I mean, you can't monitor every kid if they're getting their tongue placed in the right place, or, I mean, I'm just sometimes happy to get the right note. And I'm always happy when I get the right note. So that's part of the beginning. And then in the 7th grade and the 8th grade, I kind of teach them their scales and some arpeggios and things. But the trick has been to take pieces of music that have things that you want them to know how to do, and use that to teach them how to play their instrument. And so I try and find things that make it so they have to learn a certain skill to do that. So so that's kind of the way I base that. And I lucked out. We didn't have to have a lot. We didn't have to do a lot of. Well, I should say the only performances that we did were things that I would decide that we do. So I wasn't forced to bring kids into the public before they sounded good. I know a lot of places, you got to have this performance, and it just seems kind of wrong to me at least. So that's kind of what I've done there.
I see. Now, Dr. Rob Clevin, was a master at recruiting, and he would spend hours going through cum folders during the summer, and he would phone kids, and he would know if they had a clarinet lesson in the 3rd grade. He would somehow get them all together, and we'd have these massive bands. But frankly, Bruce, one of the things that you have in common, and I hope folks can see it out there, is that you're a patient man, an understanding, compassionate man that loves students. And this is something that we all saw and admired so much in Rob. Do you have some advice for young teachers starting out? From the sort of the music educator of the year here.
Well, it seems it's true. I guess I think of myself as a teacher of children, and that the subject matter is music, because I mean, in a class, on any given day, I mean, I see, at the high school right now, I see 200 and something kids every day. And in that class, in that group of kids, there's somebody who's dealing with a severe illness in their family. Somebody in there is dealing with maybe depression or romance. Every possible kind of human emotion is going on in those kids' lives. And so I never really think of them as the clarinet player. I mean, sometimes I'll say, clarinet, you're all playing out of tune or something. Clarinet, that's E flat, but I never think of them as the clarinet. I never think of them as the instrument. I think of them as these people. And because I've been there so long, I know I've taught most of their parents, and I know these kids, and I kind of know their families. And so it's always seemed to me that you should know the kids, because that's who it is. And when I hear teachers complain, well, these kids are this or they're that, I always think, well, yeah, they are, and that's who we're working with. I had a guy from the jazz, Monterey Jazz, say to me one time, you need to get a better bass player. And I thought, don't you think if I had a better bass player, I'd be using him?
You need to get a better quarterback. Okay.
I'm doing the best I can here. In reality, I have to make him a better player. But and he was a decent kid. And,
yes.
So he's trying, and so I think that's it. And it's hard to express how much music means to me. I'm involved in it all the time, and in all various shapes and forms of it, and I try and give that to the kids as kind of a, it sounds kind of hokey, but I really do try and give that as a gift. I try and make sure that in our class we have a musical experience every day. If it's just so many measures that we played right and we got the emotion, I try and point that out to them. I try and point out things in music that what the music means, more than just playing the right notes. I mean, I wouldn't say we have I wouldn't consider our band anything like North Monterey County or places, but we sound really good at what we do, and the kids really love playing, and so, you couldn't ask for really much more than that. I guess I could ask for everything to be in tune, but
Sure.
I'd be
What a demand. Okay, which is a nice kind of segue into, I understand you were playing down at the Pinnacles. On Wednesday.
Yeah. They wanted the high school to come play Star Spangled Banner, so I checked into the cost of a bus to go to Pinnacles, and it was going to be, expensive. And then they said, and I was kind of short notice, and so they said the paperwork will take longer than, but you get done with the paperwork, the deal will be over. So I said, well, I'll play. I play at the games sometimes. If I can't get somebody to sing or play at the football games, I'll play, which I enjoy. So I just said, I'll come up and do that. I camp up there and stuff. I used to. And I thought, yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be a good thing to do. So, yeah, I just went up Wednesday, and it was beautiful. It was cold. It was beautiful up there.
That's a really beautiful place. Now, Bruce, you also live in King City, so
Yes.
you participate in the community as well. That tends to be an anomaly in this day and age, where folks live outside and then come in to teach the children. But you're right there, and you're part of the King City Players, that
Yeah.
theatrical group down there as well. And
Yeah, I actually am one of the founding members of Stagehands down there, and a guy called up and said, we want to start, we think it would be good to have a theater group here. And I said, well, I'll come to the meeting. He said, well, could you run the first meeting? And I said, sure, I'll run the first meeting. So Suzette says, you're too busy to be involved in this. And I said, yeah, but I'm just going to be at this first meeting. It's, it'll fall apart, and then I'll be home. And so we just I just wrote the musical for their 25th anniversary show.
Oh,
I think
good
it was
for
last
you.
year.
That's
So I
terrific.
thought, wow, that
terrific.
worked out. And and the guy who called me to the meeting actually was at the thing, and he said, he doesn't live in King City anymore, and he said, you remember I started this? And I said, no, I started this. He said, no, I started it. So
Oh, goodness.
but I just, I don't actually do quite as much. I get to play in the orchestra and stuff. It's great fun. It's great.
Fantastic. So,
So-
really enjoying music, enjoying what you're doing, and living in the community and participating in the community. On a different angle, talking with music educators, and specifically with the California Music Educators, the association, the idea that many schools now are being forced to pull students out of activities to get further, perhaps, instruction so that program improvement can take place. is very challenging to arts instructors. And I know you're very outspoken about this.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons I retired from middle school, to, get down to it, is that it seems wrong. I was a lousy student. My dad would say, when he would introduce me after I was, actually working, he would say, this guy would have never graduated from high school if it hadn't been for music. And I used to say, oh, come on, Dad, I was a smart kid, but looking at my report card, I can see that. Maybe I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And I've watched when they've pulled kids out of band, and I see them like a couple of weeks, they're gone from band, and I see them out in the yard, they're saying things like, I'm going to come back in, I'm going to get back in, and I tell them, work hard so you can get back in. Then I see them a little bit later, and there's no longer that look like I'm going to be back in there. It's like, it's hopeless. And it breaks my heart. I mean, it really does. And it just seems wrong. The year that they've started pulling kids out, there's a correlation between kids that don't do well in behavior. And so, the first year I didn't have quite as many behavior problems as I normally had, which was nice in one way, but on the other hand, I've watched those behavior problem kids turn into contributing kids in my class. So, it's nice, because I'd have to deal with certain things, but on the other hand, it felt wrong. It still feels wrong to me. That if you don't have a certain, it's just not right. The kids, I don't know. I don't know. In my heart, I'm not sure that the test and the API, whatever that means, I'm not sure that stuff really affects the kid's heart. I'm not sure that there's a feeling of success in any really. I think the kids feel success by doing things and having stuff that you can put your hands on, that you can see, that you can feel, that you can touch. But I'm not bad-mouthing it really, but it just seems like, you give a kid a trumpet and you say, you're going to play the Star Spangled Banner in front of 500 people, and when you get done playing Star Spangled Banner, while 500 people are standing on their feet, it's not for you, but it's because of the flag. But still, there's a connection there. And you get the understanding that you're honoring your country while you play Star Spangled Banner, and all of that stuff. And then when the game starts, and everybody's cheering because the Star Spangled Banner is over, there's nothing like that. And to say, how was that? Whoa, that was a rush, man. Well, how was it to go up 2 points on your API or your star? How did that feel? Well, it doesn't feel like that. We got a drug culture going on. That feels great. Well, you went up in your scores. How'd that feel? They made me stand up in an assembly, and all my friends made fun of me. How'd that feel? Or you got up and played your guitar in front of the school, and everybody went, "Holy cow, this kid's got talent. He's gonna be the next Eddie Van Halen." How'd that feel? It just, to me, it seems there's so much to offer, and I guess in the arts specifically.
Well, don't feel alone here. This is over 70% of arts teachers throughout the state in the unfinished canvas refer to this as their major complaint, along with a lack of funding and lack of proper supplies. For that very reason, that youngsters who are having a degree of success, we pull them out, and they don't even have that. And then not having that translates into further negativity. It's something that we all need to face, whether or not it's effective, whether or not it's really working. And we can see, as arts educators, we can see the negative side of that with dropouts, with kids that are disengaged, kids that turn to violence and turn to gangs. These are the kinds of things in terms of opportunities that you have addressed in your marvelous career down there in King City. And speaking for all of us, Bruce, in the community, we'd like to congratulate you on your honor and thank you for all of your years of dedicated service. Well, thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Some folks spend their lives making plans. They plan every step of the way. Then they watch as their dreams, their hopes and their schemes slip from the palms of their hands. Now I live my life on just day to day. I make no plans at all. I take what comes my way. I smile and I say, life never works out like you planned. No, life never works out. Life never works out. Life never works out at all. You take what comes your way. You smile and you say, life's never gonna work out like you planned. No. When I was just a child,